Football Manager was hard until I played 12,000 hours. But that's unfair, because most of you have jobs and a life. But I had some people reach out to me recently that said Football Manager was beating them up. And when I tried to answer their question, I kind of failed. So I asked that question of myself. Football Manager was hard until, well, this list of things. Football Manager was hard until I stopped relying on my scouts. Whether it's the old scouting system or the newer Football Manager scouting system, wherever you're playing, you should never just be relying on your scouts to find players. You shouldn't. All of the best people at Football Manager, which I would like to include myself in, find a lot of our players manually. There's a lot of different ways to do this. But I get asked all the time, what are your recruitment focuses? How do you like to set them up? I have two ongoing. I'm looking for loanee players and I'm looking for players whose contracts are expired. Every once in a while, I will start a recruitment focus once again to look for players that my team now seems to have awareness of that are above average for my first team. 3.5 stars, 4 stars, whatever. And it can be incredibly useful to create a recruitment focus for a specific position if you happen to have a serious need of center backs in that particular transfer window, for example. But the majority of the players you will find, that you should find, that are able to help your team, you will find on your own. It took me a while, but I learned how to work the short lists in the game. This helps you keep track of all these different players that you discover in your travels. I have lists like yes, wonder kids, loans, keep a keen eye, end of contract. People who are in the last year of their contract, I'm waiting for them to expire. And when I need to sign a player, I don't necessarily go to the player search unless I'm incredibly desperate. I go to one of my short lists that are curated over years to provide players in different areas of need. But I can hear the main question echoing back through the camera. How do you find these players if your scouts aren't going to find them? It's not that hard once you wrap your brain around the fact that if the U20 World Cup is going on, you can just go look at it. And if you have enough scouts, you can scout the entirety of every one of those teams. At the very least, scout the younger players on those teams, because the 16, 17, 18-year-olds on the U20 team are more likely to be the types of wonder kids that you're going to want to go after. You can look through national teams in any tournament or at any time to find players that are out of a contract. If you're a smaller team, this can be incredibly useful. If you go through all the African teams, all the South American teams, all the European teams, and look for players that are out of a contract you might be able to sign, they're probably going to raise the level of your team, and there's no way your scouts are going to be able to find them because your scouts are probably confined to the one country that you're in if you are a smaller team like that. Go into the player database. Extend your scouting range as far as you can. Search for different players. Scout them. Find 15 wingbacks that have the amount of pace that you're looking for. Scout all of them. If any of them come back looking good, add them to a short list. I'll stop there because I can make a full scouting tutorial some other time. If you want that, you can come into the streams on Twitch or YouTube and ask me about it, or just comment, see if I can make a video here. But once you expand your mind from relying on scouts, Football Manager becomes easier. Football Manager was hard until I realized that you can win with a lot of different tactics. I have a brother. Well, actually, I have two, but I work with one of them, and he streams Football Manager sometimes. He's very good at the game, but for the entire time that he has ever played Football Manager, he's used one tactic. Virtually just a preset 4-2-3-1. Now, I love getting into the weeds as much as the next guy. Probably more than the next guy, no offense to the next guy. But you can win the league. You can get promoted. You can win the Champions League playing a lot of different basic tactics. Now, if you're trying to go with an 8-3-7-2-1 strikerless asymmetrical, you might be making it a little harder for yourself. That stuff obviously can be effective anyways. I've done that before. But if you roll out a basic 5 at the back, like this, if you roll out a nice 4-3-3, if you roll out a nice 4-4-2, a 4-2-3-1, just your simpler tactics when you're learning how to play the game, you can win everything you want with those. What's the phrase? It's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes. These players matter more than the tactic you have. Making sure that you get the best possible players that you can and then putting them in a tactic that doesn't have any obvious defensive holes and is able to create some offensive pressure, which again is, most basic tactics you're going to be running, you can win. Obviously, you can win in the margins by dominating, with a particular system that you develop over years and a huge tactical understanding. But it's not necessary to make Football Manager a lot easier for yourself. Football Manager was hard until I realized that the stars lie. I'm not just talking about current ability, I'm talking about potential ability too. Because Football Manager does not give you any clear rating of how good a player is outside of these numbers. These numbers are clear. They are subjected to no subjectivity at all. That's a confusing sentence. The stars, as some of you may already know, are a result of your staff's opinion of that player relative to your team average. So it's their opinion of how good your team is on average, and then it's their opinion of how good that player is relative to that average. If you're wondering where this is, it's in the reports section on your staff responsibilities, provides player reports, and there's a drop down for you to be able to select which coach is providing that. You want the one with the best judging player ability and judging, player potential ability. But even if they're really good at it, it is still just their opinion. And that opinion is weighted by a few things. How many positions a player plays has a huge weight on it. So if the player is versatile, they're going to get a higher star rating than players that aren't. But oftentimes the player that's less versatile, if they're at the same level star rating, is going to actually be a better player when they're on the field. They just play less positions. Weak foot also has a lot to do with this. If you have somebody that is a fullback, you don't really care about them having a great other weak foot. You would love for it to be there, but the stars can be overweighted because, oh, he's either footed. Well, I just need somebody that's a good left back, and I want my left back to hug the line, so I don't care at all. And that means their attributes are going to be higher at the same star rating. And honestly, sometimes that star rating fluctuates pretty wildly based off the form of the player over the course of the season. So while it can be overwhelming, the only thing you really can trust are the attributes of the players. And if you take 10 3-star players that play center back, none of them are created equal. They're all going to have strengths and weaknesses, and you've got to figure out what you want. Then there's the potential ability. Potential ability is incredibly sexy, incredibly attractive, but Football Manager becomes a lot easier when you realize the younger a player is, the less reliable that potential ability is in the first place. And the older a player gets, the harder it's going to be for them to develop towards it. So don't just go signing everybody that has that 5-star potential ability, because sometimes it's just a lie. They don't have it. You want to make sure that you're balancing player acquisition with how good that player is now to make sure that you offset, well, what if they don't reach their potential? And there are players that have this type of potential ability, right, that end up in this sort of category that will end up being much better players for you because they're actually able to reach it. Or in some cases, everybody's always worried about their mistake being too high. The mistakes being too low happen as well, where they rate the potential ability lower than it actually is. The best player to come through my youth academy in my current Twitch save that I've been playing through is this guy, Pedro Lopez. Pedro Lopez has not always had 5-star potential, and at this point, he still doesn't. What he did have was the ability to develop incredibly aggressively. I had him out on loan for a year or two, and he developed like crazy. He was one of 10 guys that had, 3 to kind of 5-star potential somewhere in there. He was the one that went, crazy with the development, while a lot of the other guys haven't. This guy, Asir Silva, has had 5-star potential from the moment he came in through my youth intake. I have given him great development opportunities. I have loaned him out to very productive clubs to play for, and relative to the other guy we were just looking at, he's just not nearly as good. He has not developed despite having the same personality. The stars, particularly with potential ability, are at best a guide. Football Manager was hard until I realized dynamics are everything. When you're watching my stream, you want to know why we're winning so much? Everybody likes each other. Everybody. It is impossible to win consistently in Football Manager if you have a bad club atmosphere. If you lose the club atmosphere, you have to do literally everything to try and get it back, or else you are going to fail. It is the hidden engine of the entire game. And it really, I'm not saying that's entirely unrealistic either. If there's a terrible locker room atmosphere, a team's going to be playing a lot worse than a team that is all of a sudden believing in each other again and likes being there, and everybody's pulling towards the same goal. Just look at Manchester United in real life right now. They almost got that guy to cut his hair. Now, it is going to be impossible, particularly in the situation that I'm in this save after 3 straight promotions, to keep everybody happy, right? The reputation of your club doesn't go up fast enough. Playing time expectations are all out of whack for the level you need to play at, but you need to manage it in a way that prevents it from tanking your club atmosphere. If you lose track of stuff, this is typically playing time. It can ruin everything. And if a player comes to you worried about playing time, you either make that promise that you're going to give them the playing time that they want, which I've made in this case to Willie, or you start to try and find a way to get them to leave. But if you do this in an aggressive way and they're high up your hierarchy, a bunch of people can agree with them. And once that starts to happen, you can immediately blow up your atmosphere. There is a very useful contract screen in the recruitment section that allows you not only to see percent of wage budget you're spending on players and so on and so forth, but to see the playing time that is allotted to each player. If you didn't know this was there, use it. And if you ever want to check check if there's going to be a problem, you can go into a player, go to performance, and then click on this little playing time section. If they have an agent, you can threaten to lower their expected playing time, at which point the agent will tell you if it's not a good move. Where at Impact Sub, it wouldn't be a good move, but the agent's telling you it wouldn't be a good move to send him all the way down to emergency backup. So we're going to send him down to Impact Sub, and he acknowledges that based off where the rest of the team is, that's something that he's comfortable with. You want to be proactive with that, because if you don't do that, you're not, changing the expectation with that player, and they're going to get mad they're not playing like he was about to. Now, obviously, there are a lot of promises that don't have much to do with playing time at all. You want to try to avoid those promises like the plague, and if you have to do them, which obviously I've been in a position where I've had to do a few of them, you want to keep track of them really aggressively. There's a promises section in the squad section on FM26 at least, where you can track how long that is going to go and how your progress is doing. So if a player's supposed to be playing, it will tell you if they believe the amount that they've been playing is acceptable or if it's not. With Madu Murcia, I have 9 days left to enter into a new contract negotiation with him, or he will be upset. So I should do that now. I also have a promise to bring in quality strength at the center back position, because I am trying to sell one of my center backs and they were upset that I didn't want to give that new center back a new contract. That's a promise I'm comfortable with, because we are going to bring in another center back that's going to improve the back line after letting the previous guy go, and then we should be able to satisfy this promise. If you're ever not sure what you're going to need to do to satisfy a promise, Google it. Never commit to a promise you don't know exactly how you're going to be able to satisfy it, because it literally can ruin the entire save. No pressure. Football Manager was hard until I realized match sharpness matters. You want the other hidden killer in Football Manager, the two things that really can take what should be a great team performing super well and ruin it. It's dynamics and match sharpness. You want your team to just be very match sharp. It's this column. Right, and it's basically a column that denotes how fit and ready a player is to be able to go out there and play a full 90 minutes. And obviously, if it's a red X, it's not good. If it's a green check, it is at the highest level that you're going to have. Now, depending on what league you're in, your options when it comes to this are going to be all over the place. You could have a reserve league to keep teams fit. You could have a B team where you're going to be able to send a few players there every once in a blue moon so that they can maintain fitness. It could be down to the point that I was at last season, where you just start scheduling midweek friendlies every week and have your backups play in those local midweek friendlies. That is not a great idea to do consistently, because it's robbing you of a full day of training every day for the development of Wonder Kids and the, preservation of skills for all of your first team players. But if there's no other option, it's something that's worth considering, once or twice a month at least. Because if you're wondering why your subs are not ever coming in and making an impact, it might be because all of them have that. The red X that means they're not match sharp and they're just not ready to be able to go out. They're not fit and ready for a match, because they haven't played in a while. It's a realistic mechanic, and it's a mechanic that really encourages rotation if you're able to build up that match sharpness momentum, I call it. Over the course of a season, if you're working these guys in, keeping their match sharpness basically off the red X, it can really benefit you down towards the end of the season. It's frustrating for somebody like me, who is a perfectionist when it comes to this sort of thing, because you will never have a green check mark on all of these players. It's just something you need to be conscious of and always managing. Kind of the point of the game anyways, right? Because if you don't, you lose. Football Manager was hard until I realized transfers could happen at any time. We are conditioned to believe, especially going into this game, that all of your transfers are just going to happen during the transfer window. Like, transfer windows are when the transfers happen. But that is also when everybody else is trying to make their transfers happen. If you're scouting the way that I talked about earlier in this video, you can start offering out at any time. You can negotiate signings at any time. And of course, they won't join you until the next transfer window, but it reduces the amount of competition and allows you to sign a bunch of players, unimpeded and unencumbered by the burden of other teams trying to negotiate with them. For example, in my save, we identified a guy named Emil Vitboy, a wonder kid from South Africa, and we managed to hammer out an entire transfer for him by, late May. We already know he's going to be able to be there and help us take a giant step forward forward, so we might as well get that process started now. There's no reason to wait. I don't know why this is such a mind-blowing thing for some people, and it feels even wrong to do for me still sometimes. Just negotiate the transfer now. Just do it. The only downside is if you're going to find a better player later that's going to be able to take that same spot. But if you know a guy improves your team, like I know Emil Vitboy improves my team, the asking price is low, we can afford his wage, I'm doing the deal. It's entirely possible to complete your transfer window checklist before the transfer window even opens. Football Manager was hard until I started recruiting to my registration. There is, perhaps, no part of Football Manager that has caused more pain per capita, like per usage, than the registration screen. It's the screen where dreams go to die. It's the screen where all of that wonderful transfer work that you did comes unraveled because you didn't know that a particular player was going to be eligible or count in this spot or count in that spot. And now you got to loan 3 people and 2 guys are pissed off at you. You couldn't register them in the first place. The starting point of your entire transfer process should be this screen. You should look at it more than people usually do because your registration will fully limit who is going to be available to play for you. You need to allocate each of these spots in the registration and decide what you want to do with it. If you're playing in a league like Poland or Germany where registration basically doesn't matter, then good for you. But for most leagues, it does. And everything that it tells you over here, and if you click on this stuff, it will show you those players. Like, oh, these are my non-EU players, for example. Look at it. What spots do I have? What resources do I have to fill those spots? That's the whole game of recruitment. What spots do I have? What resources do I have to allocate to fill each of those spots? It is a rookie mistake to be surprised by registration, but it's even a veteran's mistake to think that you can squeeze it into registration and end up angering somebody anyways. It's always completely unnecessary. There should always be a plan of, oh, I can get rid of this guy. And just for the record, if a player is on impact sub or lower, they can be left out of European registration without getting mad. That's just some ball knowledge I've accrued that could be of some assistance. Football Manager was hard until I used my advice and reports. You don't have to be familiar with every screen in the game of Football Manager from the start, but you do need to be familiar with your staff responsibilities screen. So club responsibilities, and then if you click up here, advice and reports is eventually going to drop down. It's a little buggy the way it's set up right now. And in your advice and reports screen, you get a collection of different reports from your staff. These different reports are going to bring you to all of the different screens that you want to go to. Despite the fact that it's very well hidden, it is important. You get feedback on recruitment and feedback from your scouts. You get reports on players' development. You get your player reports. This is the star rating thing. Provides youth development information. Provides feedback on loans. Feedback on coaching and feedback on staffing. You can even get more granular and customize the advice that you're receiving from all of these different sections, but you can see all of the useful stuff that they provide. Training intensity changes, suitable captains, suitable free kick takers. Maybe you should start this individual training. Check out this formation. You have better corner takers, player roles changing, player trait alterations, a reminder and a thought, hey, you might want to add, knocks ball past opponents on this guy because we think it would work. You want to have coaching staff members that are recruited specifically to provide these reports, to provide this information. And you're going to want to pay attention to them. There's the frequency up here at the top that you can set, but this one screen will allow you to accomplish so much more without being overwhelmed by trying to remember to always dive into all the different parts of the game. And quite frankly, saves you time. So you can spend more time enjoying the game and then deal with player trait changes when you've decided your reports should be coming up. One of the most realistic parts of the game too, because you really just have different members of your staff coming to you saying, hey, this is what I think this week. This is my weekly report on this. How you doing? Football Manager was hard until I started changing set pieces during matches. For years, set pieces were something that I would just set up and basically never look at. This is the way I'm going to defend. This is the way I'm going to attack, and then just let it run the entire season. But you realize as you play the game, what makes it really challenging to defend set pieces is every single team you play against is going to have a different plan. But if you can figure out what that plan is, and it's usually very obvious, like let's say they're just lobbing it to the near post, lobbing it to the far post, playing it short, you can set up your personnel to try and deny that. Oh, I'm just going to put somebody, a couple of guys on man mark to help my zone out at the front post. Or I'm a man marking defense. Let me put 2 guys zoning out the front post so there's a lot more people there. Or they play it short. Let me put a bunch of guys at the edge of the box and make sure that I have, man markers that can get shorter to try and take it away. It's actually pretty hard to stop short corners in this game because you can't tell somebody to go up there. Same thing with the far post or any other style that they're playing. If you notice openings or you notice that you're seeing a highlight of their set piece, change it. Game's called Football Manager. Don't forget you can do that. And Football Manager was hard until I realized I needed to pay attention to contract lengths. This becomes more and more and more important on Football Manager every single year. And we've seen it happen to real life, Premier League teams that don't pay attention to contract lengths and get absolutely destroyed. Because as the money in the game increases, and the money disparity between the smallest clubs and the biggest clubs increases, the harder it is to move a player that you're paying higher and higher amounts of money. And while the length of a contract during your contract negotiation can feel like an afterthought, let's negotiate with Madu Murcia, he was mad at me earlier, it's something that you very much want to pay attention to. It's something that you don't want to overlook. Because if I'm agreeing to pay Madu Murcia $782,000 per year for 4 years, I want to make sure that I'm not in a position where I don't need him at some point in that contract, or some other team won't need him at some point in that contract for that amount of money. And if you're not sure, it is absolutely worth raising the wage a little bit, but lowering the number of years the player is under contract. You don't want to be overzealous with this because you don't want to constantly have to be renegotiating. And with somebody like Madu Murcia, I know he's 22 years old. He's got some more potential he's going to grow into. There are other teams that are going to want to pay him this amount of money, so I'm okay with a 4-year contract because I will find another transfer. Somebody like Haroon Ibrahim, who's under a 4-year deal getting paid $1.2 million per season, that was a pretty bold move by me. I did it because I really needed somebody who could start it right back for me. But I am aware that there is a huge risk in a 4-year contract of that size because there's probably not any club that would be willing to pay near that amount of money for this guy, especially in a year or two as he starts to get older. Will their age and ability match the demands that you're paying now at the end of the contract? If the answer is no, try to change something about the contract or be willing to take the hit, because the bigger your club is, the harder it is to move players. And you cannot ever work under the assumption that, I'll just be able to move them later. Pay attention to contract lengths and you will save yourself years of frustration, and the type of frustration that can also ruin your dynamics, by the way, because if you can't move a player and they're mad, they can tank other things that we've already talked about. And most importantly, this is the most important one. Football Manager was hard until I read the rules. Football Manager is an idiot trap. There's so many things going on that you can accidentally screw yourself by not paying attention. If you go to your competition and you go to the rules, there is a page. Read the whole thing. I am managing in Spain in my current save that I'm streaming on Twitch and on the Zealand Live YouTube channel, right? And if you watch that, you will have seen me looking up all of these things. The European Free Trade Association, the African, Caribbean, and Pacific Group of States, making sure I keep track of all EU and Turkic nations, because according to squad registration, and this goes back to that too, those guys are eligible as EU as well as all of these countries. I read all of that. I read the loan rules. I read the minimum salary rules, because all of these things can screw you over, right down to the fact that the transfer window might start and end at a different time than you expect. For example, in the Spanish second division, your January transfer window ends on January 25th. Every year, or every time you go into a new league, you should sit down and read the rules. If you don't, I guarantee you're going to accidentally miss something, whether it's part of the substitution rules, whether it's part of the registration, whether it's part of the transfers or the loans, or who's EU and who's not, and who's eligible for this and who's not. It is so hard to keep straight. You gotta read them and you will save yourself. Everybody that's played this game that doesn't read the rules as a matter of OCD has done at least one and probably many dumb things that they will be telling you about as part of their therapy in the comments. But hopefully all of this makes Football Manager a little easier for you. I'll see you on stream. Boom. It's a fist bump. I'm not punching you, I promise.